The fateful encounter. Liam adjusted his helmet as he floated near the satellite, his tools tethered to his suit. The silence of space surrounded him, broken only by the occasional crackle of his comms. His task was routine, fixing a damaged communication relay. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. "Almost done here," he muttered, his voice carrying a hint of nervousness. As he tightened the last bolt, a faint glow caught his eye. He turned his head, squinting against the dark expanse of space. Far below, in the shadow of a derelict space station, a soft, blue light pulsed like a heartbeat. Curiosity gnawed at him. "Control, I'm seeing something unusual near the old station," he reported. "Permission to check it out." There was a pause before the voice of Mission Control crackled back. "Be careful, Liam. That station's been abandoned for decades." "Copy that," he replied, his curiosity outweighing his caution. With a gentle push, he propelled himself toward the station, the glow growing brighter as he approached. The station was a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered glass, a relic of a forgotten era. Liam maneuvered carefully, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The glow led him to a small chamber, its entrance half obscured by debris. He hesitated before stepping inside. The room was eerily silent, save for the faint hum of the mysterious light. It emanated from a spherical device on the floor, its surface covered in alien symbols. Liam crouched down, his gloved hand hovering over it. "That's not human tech," he whispered to himself. Before he could examine it further, a shadow moved in the corner of his vision. He spun around, his flashlight beam landing on a figure. His breath caught. Standing before him was a woman, tall, slender, and unmistakably alien. Her skin shimmered like silver under the light, and her large violet eyes studied him with an intensity that made his heart race. She was dressed in a tattered cloak, her posture both weary and alert. Liam raised his hand slowly, trying to appear non-threatening. "I didn't mean to intrude," he stammered. "I'm just a repairman." The alien woman tilted her head, her gaze unyielding. After a moment, she spoke, her voice soft yet commanding. "You shouldn't be here, human." Her words were clear, though her accent was unlike anything Liam had ever heard. He was too stunned to respond, his mind racing with questions. Who was she? Why was she here? And how did she know his language? The woman stepped closer, her movements graceful but cautious. "This station is not safe," she continued. "Leave now before they find you." "Wait," Liam said, finding his voice. "Who are you? And who's they?" Her expression darkened. "You ask too many questions," she replied. "Just go. If they discover you, it will be too late." Liam hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. "If it's dangerous, then why are you here?" For a brief moment, a flicker of emotion crossed her face. Regret, perhaps, or sadness. "I have my reasons," she said quietly. "Now leave." Before Liam could respond, a distant rumble shook the station. The woman's eyes widened, and she grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "They're coming," she whispered urgently. "Go now." She pushed him toward the entrance, her violet eyes pleading. Liam stumbled out of the chamber, his heart pounding. He glanced back, but the woman was already retreating into the shadows. As he navigated back to his ship, questions swirled in his mind. Who was she? What was she hiding? And why did he feel an unshakable connection to her, a complete stranger? By the time he reached his ship and launched back to Earth, he knew one thing for certain. This was no ordinary encounter. The alien woman's warning echoed in his mind, leaving him with a sense of unease and a burning desire to uncover the truth. Little did he know, their paths were destined to cross again, and his life would never be the same. The forbidden signal. Liam had tried to move on. After returning to Earth, he resumed his life as an engineer, pretending the encounter on the derelict station never happened. But the alien woman's warning lingered in his mind like a haunting melody. He couldn't forget her piercing violet eyes or the urgency in her voice. Every night, he replayed the encounter in his head, searching for answers he didn't have. One evening, as he sat in his small apartment overlooking the city, a strange beeping sound jolted him from his thoughts. He glanced at his communication console, where a series of garbled signals blinked across the screen. Frowning, he tapped a few keys, trying to decipher the message. The signal wasn't just static, it was a pattern, deliberate and precise. His heart raced as he ran the data through his decoding software. Within moments, a distorted voice crackled through the speakers. "Liam, can you hear me?" He froze. The voice was faint but unmistakable. It was her. "Kyra," he whispered, leaning closer to the console. "Is that you?" The voice grew clearer. "I don't have much time. They're tracking me. I need your help." Liam's hands trembled as he activated the secure channel. "Help. You told me to stay away. Why are you contacting me now?" There was a pause, and when Kyra spoke again, her voice was filled with desperation. "Because I have no one else to turn to. I risked everything to reach you. Please, listen to me." Against his better judgment, Liam nodded, even though she couldn't see him. "I'm listening." Kyra explained in hurried tones that her people, the Arcadi, had discovered her betrayal. They were now hunting her across the galaxy. Worse, she revealed that the Arcadi were planning a covert operation against Earth, a preemptive strike to ensure humanity never became a threat. Liam felt a chill run down his spine. Why would they do that? We're not even a spacefaring threat. "To them, you are," Kyra replied. "They fear what you could become. Your resilience, your creativity, it terrifies them. They see you as unpredictable, a species that could challenge their dominion." Her words left Liam speechless. He had always thought of humanity as small and insignificant in the vast expanse of the universe. To hear otherwise was both unsettling and strangely empowering. "I don't understand," he said finally. "Why are you telling me this? Why risk everything to warn me?" Kyra's voice softened. "Because you made me see something I didn't want to admit. When we met, I saw the spark of something extraordinary in you, something that could unite your people and protect them from what's coming. I couldn't turn my back on that." Liam's mind swirled with questions, but the most pressing one escaped his lips. "What do you need me to do?" Kyra hesitated. "Meet me. I sent coordinates to a safe location. I can't explain everything over the comms. It's too risky. But I need you to trust me, Liam." Trust. The word hung heavy in the air. Liam barely knew this alien woman, yet something in her voice, in the way she spoke, compelled him to believe her. He exhaled deeply. "Fine. I'll come. But you'd better have answers." "I will," Kyra promised. "And Liam, thank you." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Liam staring at the now silent console. He knew the decision he'd just made could change his life forever. Yet, deep down, he felt a strange sense of purpose, as if he'd been waiting for this moment without realizing it. As he packed his gear and prepared for the journey, one thought kept echoing in his mind. Who was Kyra, really? And why did he feel like this was only the beginning of something far greater than himself? Little did he know, the coordinates she had sent would lead him into the heart of a dangerous conspiracy, one that would test his courage, his loyalty, and the very essence of what it meant to be human. The chase begins. The rendezvous point was unlike anything Liam had imagined. The coordinates Kyra sent led him to a barren, rocky moon far from the usual star routes. Its surface was a jagged wasteland of craters and cliffs, illuminated by the dim light of a nearby dying star. Liam's shuttle landed with a hiss, and the silence that followed was unnerving. He stepped out, his boots crunching on the gray soil, scanning the desolate landscape. "Kyra," he called, his voice muffled by his helmet. For a moment, there was no response. Then, a faint shimmer appeared in the air, like ripples on the surface of water. The distortion solidified into Kyra, her form emerging from a cloaking field. Her silver skin glowed faintly under the pale light, and her eyes seemed sharper, more intense than before. "You made it," she said, relief evident in her voice. "We don't have much time." Liam frowned. "You're going to have to explain what's going on. You dragged me all the way out here. Now talk." Kira gestured for him to follow her. "Not here. They're already looking for me. We need to keep moving." Despite his frustration, Liam fell into step behind her. She led him toward a narrow canyon, its walls steep and lined with strange, glowing plants. The air grew heavier, the oppressive silence broken only by the sound of their footsteps. Liam's unease grew with each step. "They're tracking me," Kyra said suddenly, breaking the silence. "The Arcadi have dispatched hunters. They won't stop until I'm captured, or worse." Liam glanced at her. "And you think they'll come after me too?" Kyra nodded. "You've been marked. By helping me, you've made yourself a target." Liam stopped in his tracks. "You could have warned me about that before I agreed to this." Kyra turned to face him, her expression somber. "If I had told you, would you have come?" Liam opened his mouth to argue but stopped. She was right. He might have walked away, convinced himself it wasn't his problem. But now, standing in the middle of an alien moon with danger looming, he realized there was no turning back. Before he could respond, a piercing sound cut through the air, a high-pitched whine that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Kyra's eyes widened in alarm. "They found us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Run." Without waiting for him to process, she grabbed his arm and pulled him into a sprint. Behind them, the canyon lit up with flashes of blue light, followed by the sharp crack of energy weapons. Liam didn't look back. He could feel the heat of the blasts, hear the sound of the rock walls exploding around them. "Who are these people?" Liam shouted as they dodged falling debris. "They're not people," Kyra replied. "They're hunters, artificial beings programmed to track and eliminate threats to the Empire." The path ahead narrowed, forcing them to move single file. Kyra turned sharply and ducked into a small cave hidden by overgrown plants. Liam followed, his chest heaving as he tried to catch his breath. The cave was dark and damp, the air thick with the scent of minerals. Kyra activated a small device on her wrist, and a faint energy field shimmered to life at the cave's entrance. "This will hold them off for now," she said. Liam leaned against the wall, trying to process what had just happened. "You brought me into this without telling me half of what I needed to know. What are you expecting me to do against killer robots?" Kyra crouched down beside him, her gaze unwavering. "I didn't bring you here to fight them. I brought you here because I need you to see the truth. Humanity is more important than you realize. The Arcadi see your potential, and they fear it. That's why they're targeting you, targeting Earth." Liam shook his head. "I'm just an engineer. What potential could I possibly have?" Kyra's expression softened. "You're more than that, Liam. Humans are more than what you think you are. Your ingenuity, your determination. These are things my people lack. You have the ability to adapt, to think beyond logic. It's what makes you dangerous to them, and invaluable to me." Liam stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. Before he could respond, the energy field flickered. Kyra's eyes narrowed. "They're breaching the field." She stood abruptly, pulling a small weapon from her cloak. "Stay behind me." The field crackled and failed, and the cave was flooded with light. The hunters stepped inside, their sleek, metallic forms reflecting the dim glow of the cave. Their movements were unnervingly precise, their glowing eyes fixed on Kyra and Liam. Liam's heart pounded as Kyra raised her weapon. The air filled with the sound of energy blasts and the sharp crack of rocks breaking apart. Kyra moved with fluid precision, her every motion calculated and deadly. Liam, unarmed and out of his depth, could do nothing but watch in awe and terror. As the last hunter fell, Kyra turned to him, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "We can't stay here," she said. "More will come." Liam nodded, his fear momentarily overshadowed by admiration. "Where do we go?" Kyra's lips tightened. "To the only place they won't dare follow." And with that, their perilous journey truly began. Secrets of the past. The journey to the sanctuary was treacherous. Kyra piloted a stolen Arcady craft through the dark expanse of space, her hands steady on the controls despite the tension radiating from her. Liam sat in the co-pilot seat, his gaze fixed on the swirling nebula outside the window. He couldn't shake the image of the hunters, merciless machines built for destruction. "Where are we going?" Liam finally asked, breaking the heavy silence. Kyra's voice was calm but firm. "To a place the Arcady abandoned long ago. They won't follow us there because it's forbidden." Liam frowned. "Forbidden? Why?" Kyra hesitated, her grip on the controls tightening. "Because it holds truths they'd rather forget. Truths about their own history, and about yours." That last part caught Liam off guard. "Our history. What does Earth have to do with your people?" Instead of answering, Kyra activated the ship's cloaking field and set the autopilot. "You'll see soon enough." The sanctuary was hidden on a moon orbiting a dying planet, its surface cloaked in perpetual twilight. The base was carved into the side of a massive cliff, its entrance marked by glowing alien glyphs. As they landed, Liam felt a strange sense of unease, as though the place itself was watching him. "This is it," Kyra said, stepping out of the craft. "Follow me, and don't touch anything." Liam rolled his eyes but obeyed. The inside of the sanctuary was vast and dimly lit, its walls covered in carvings that seemed to shimmer as they moved. The air was heavy, almost oppressive, and every sound they made echoed endlessly. Kyra led him to a circular chamber at the heart of the structure. In the center stood a massive crystalline obelisk, its surface alive with shifting images and symbols. Liam stared in awe as scenes of battles, alliances, and distant worlds played out before his eyes. "What is this place?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Kyra approached the obelisk and placed her hand on its surface. The images shifted, focusing on one specific scene, a group of Arcady standing with humans, their hands clasped in unity. "This," Kyra said, "is what my people have tried to erase from history. Long ago, before the Arcady became the empire they are today, we were explorers, much like your people. We found Earth when your species was still in its infancy. We watched you grow, fascinated by your potential." Liam frowned. "If your people were so fascinated, why didn't they help us?" Kyra's expression darkened. "Because they feared you. Your creativity, your ability to adapt. These traits are rare in the galaxy. My ancestors saw them as both a gift and a threat. When they realized how quickly you were advancing, they decided to cut all ties and hide their presence. They believed it was safer that way." Liam's mind raced as he processed her words. "So, what? You've been spying on us ever since, keeping tabs on humanity like some kind of science experiment." Kyra shook her head. "Not me. Not all of us. But the Arcady leadership, yes. They've monitored your progress for centuries. And now that you're venturing into space, they see you as a danger that must be contained." Liam stepped closer to the obelisk, his eyes fixed on the images. "And you? Why do you care? Why risk everything to help us?" Kyra hesitated, her voice softening. "Because I don't believe in the Empire's fear. I've seen what your people are capable of, the good and the bad. And I believe you have the potential to be more than what the Arcady fear, to be a force for unity, not destruction." Her words hung heavy in the air, and Liam felt a strange mix of pride and responsibility. But before he could respond, the obelisk shifted again, revealing a new image, a fleet of Arcady warships, their weapons trained on Earth. Liam's stomach dropped. "What is that?" Kyra's expression turned grim. "The future. If we don't act, the Arcady will launch their first strike within the next cycle. They'll justify it as a preemptive measure to protect themselves. Liam clenched his fists, anger rising in his chest. We can't let that happen. There has to be a way to stop them. Kyra nodded. There is, but it won't be easy. To convince my people to stand down, we need proof, evidence that humanity is not the threat they believe you to be. And that means going deeper into the Empire's archives. Deeper, Liam echoed. We're already in a forbidden sanctuary on a moon no one dares visit. How much deeper can we go? Kyra's eyes met his, filled with a mix of determination and fear, to the heart of their capital, to the place where they hide their darkest secrets. Liam swallowed hard, his earlier bravado fading. But as daunting as the task sounded, he knew there was no turning back. If what Kyra said was true, the fate of humanity, and perhaps even the galaxy, rested on their shoulders. Then we'd better get started, he said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at him. Kyra allowed herself a small, fleeting smile. You're braver than you realize, Liam. Let's hope it's enough. And with that, they set their sights on a mission that would test every ounce of their courage, intelligence, and trust in each other. A dangerous plan. The days that followed were tense. Kyra and Liam spent countless hours inside the sanctuary, poring over ancient texts and data crystals that Kyra had retrieved from the Arcady archives. The more they learned, the more Liam felt the weight of the mission pressing down on him. The fate of humanity, and possibly the future of intergalactic peace, hung in the balance. I don't understand, Liam said one evening, his brow furrowed as he reviewed a particularly complex data file. If the Arcady believe we're a threat, why don't they just destroy us outright? Why all these elaborate plans? Kyra, sitting across from him, paused for a moment. Her violet eyes, usually full of determination, seemed haunted. Because they don't want to make martyrs of you, she explained quietly. Your species has a unique ability. When pushed to the brink, when faced with overwhelming odds, humans find a way to fight back. Not with sheer force, but with ingenuity and unity. The Arcady fear that kind of unpredictability. Liam's eyes narrowed. You mean we're not just a threat because of our technology? It's because we might unite the galaxy against them. Exactly, Kyra replied. Your potential to inspire others, to rally them against tyranny. It's something they've never seen before. They can't control that. Liam leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. So, you're telling me they're afraid of what humanity might become, not what we are right now? Kyra nodded. Yes, and because of that, they want to keep you divided. Weak. At war with each other. If you were to unite, if you were to realize your full potential, the Arcady Empire would be in danger. They'd done everything they can to prevent that. The revelation was staggering. Humanity had always believed itself to be small in the grand scheme of the universe, but hearing this made Liam realize that the Arcady saw them as a threat on a scale he could never have imagined. Then what do we do now? Liam asked, his voice steady despite the growing fear in his chest. How do we stop them? Kyra's face hardened, her eyes narrowing with a fierce determination. We expose them for what they truly are. We reveal the truth about their plans and their fear of humanity. If we can do that, we might have a chance to turn the tide. Liam's gaze fell to the data crystal in his hands. But how? They have the entire galaxy under their thumb. They control the information, the narrative. Even if we expose the truth, no one will believe us. Kyra didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stood and walked to a nearby console, entering a series of commands. The screen flickered, and then a holographic map of the Arcady Empire appeared. Several planets were marked with red dots, each one representing a key military outpost. We need to gather evidence, she said, pointing to a planet located at the edge of the Empire's territory. This is where the Arcady keep their most valuable intel, their central archive. If we can infiltrate their core systems and retrieve the data they've been hiding, We can prove that humanity is not the threat they believe you to be. Liam's heart raced as he studied the map. That's in the heart of Arcady space. It's a suicide mission. Kyra turned to face him, her eyes unwavering. I know, but it's our only chance. Liam swallowed hard. The odds seemed impossible. They would be facing the full might of the Arcady Empire, and even with Kyra's skills and his knowledge of technology, the task seemed insurmountable. But deep down, he knew she was right. If they didn't act now, the Arcady would strike Earth, and humanity wouldn't stand a chance. You're asking me to risk everything, Liam said, his voice quiet but firm. Kyra's expression softened, and for the first time, Liam saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. I'm not asking you to do this alone, Liam. We do this together, or not at all. He met her gaze, feeling a strange mix of fear and respect. Despite the dangers, despite the odds stacked against them, he knew he couldn't back down. Not now. Not when the future of humanity was at stake. All right, Liam said, his voice steady. We'll do it. But we need a plan. We need to be ready for whatever they throw at us. Kyra smiled, a glimmer of pride in her eyes. I knew you'd come around. Let's get to work. The next few days were spent preparing for the mission. They scavenged parts from the sanctuary's old equipment and used the data crystals to craft a plan of infiltration. Kyra taught Liam the ins and outs of Arcady technology, showing him how to bypass their security systems and how to use the weapons she had acquired. Despite the fear gnawing at him, Liam found himself growing more confident with each passing day. The more he learned, the more he realized just how capable he was, and how much humanity had to offer the galaxy. He had a sense of purpose now, a belief that their fight was about more than just survival. It was about proving to the Arcady and the galaxy that humans were worthy of their place in the stars. On the final day before their departure, Kyra took Liam aside. I know this mission seems impossible, but we have one thing the Arcady don't have, she said, her voice serious. Liam raised an eyebrow. What's that? Hope, Kyra said simply. And if there's one thing that can change the course of history, it's hope. Liam nodded, feeling the weight of her words. In that moment, he understood. This wasn't just about stopping a war. It was about changing the future, and he would fight with everything he had to make sure that humanity would have a chance to shape that future. With a deep breath, he turned to the console. Let's make history. And with that, their dangerous mission to infiltrate the heart of the Arcady Empire began. The betrayal. The journey to the heart of the Arcady Empire had been long and perilous. Kyra and Liam had spent days navigating the maze of Arcady-controlled space, carefully avoiding patrols and staying off the main routes. The stolen ship they were using had been modified to blend in with Arcady designs, and Kyra's expertise in stealth made it nearly undetectable to enemy sensors. But even with all their precautions, Liam could feel the pressure building. How much farther? Liam asked one day, his eyes scanning the cold void of space. We're almost there, Kyra replied, her voice calm but tight with anticipation. We'll need to go dark once we enter the planet's atmosphere. No signals, no communications. We can't risk them detecting us. Liam nodded, feeling a pit in his stomach. Every instinct screamed that they were walking into a trap, but he trusted Kyra. She'd been leading them with a confidence that had kept his fears in check. The planet loomed ahead, an industrial world surrounded by layers of shields and defensive systems. It was the center of Arcady military operations, the seat of their power, the central archive where they would find the evidence they needed to expose the truth, lay deep within a sprawling city, hidden beneath layers of security. No one had ever breached it, and the few who had tried had never been heard from again. As they entered the planet's atmosphere, the ship's sensors picked up unusual activity. Something's off, Kyra muttered, her hands moving quickly over the controls. Liam watched the readouts, his anxiety growing. What do you mean? Hold on, Kyra said, her voice tense. We've been compromised. Before Liam could respond, the ship jolted and alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the cockpit, signaling that they were under fire. Kyra's hand flew to the controls, trying to regain control of the ship. "Damn it," she hissed. "They've been tracking us. The moment we entered the system, they locked onto us. We're in their sights now." Liam's heart pounded in his chest. "What do we do?" Kyra's fingers danced over the control panel, but the ship shuddered again. "We have to get to the archive before they shoot us down. If we don't, we're dead." But as she spoke, a new voice broke through the comms, chilling Liam to his core. "Kyra," the voice said, cold and measured. "You didn't think you could run forever, did you?" Liam's blood ran cold as Kyra's face went pale. She turned to him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "It's him," she whispered. "My former commander, Zarek." Liam's hand instinctively moved to the weapon at his side, but Kyra stopped him. "No," she said, her voice low. "Zarek is not someone you want to fight head-on. We have to outsmart him." Zarek's voice crackled through the comms again, mocking them. "I'm glad to see you're still alive, Kyra. Though I must say, I'm disappointed. You've betrayed everything we've worked for, everything I've taught you." Liam glanced at Kyra, seeing the pain in her eyes. "You know him." Kyra's voice trembled slightly as she answered. "I was once his student. He was the one who trained me, who shaped my understanding of the Arcady way. He was my mentor." Liam's mind raced. "Then why?" "I don't know," Kyra interrupted. "He's changed. When I left the Empire, I thought he'd understand. But now I see he's just another puppet of the system." As they argued, the ship's outer hull was struck by another blast, sending them into a violent spin. Kyra fought to stabilize the craft, but it was clear they were outmatched. "Listen to me, Kyra," Zarek's voice boomed through the ship. "I'll give you one last chance. Surrender, and I'll make sure the human is kept alive. You, on the other hand, will face the consequences of your betrayal." Liam's eyes narrowed. "He's trying to manipulate you, Kyra. Don't listen to him." But Kyra was silent, her gaze fixed on the control panel. The weight of the decision hung in the air. After what felt like an eternity, she looked at Liam, her expression a mix of regret and resolve. "Get ready," she said softly. "We're going in. We'll fight our way to the archive. We have no choice." Before Liam could protest, the ship lurched as Kyra activated the emergency thrusters. They broke through the cloud cover and descended into the heart of the city, the towering spires of the Arcady capital rising before them. The city was a maze of steel and glass, a testament to the Arcady Empire's power and control. As they descended, the air filled with the sound of sirens and the flash of warning lights. Kyra's hands moved swiftly over the controls, guiding the ship toward a hidden hangar on the outskirts of the city. They had to make it inside before the full force of the Arcady military could converge on them. But just as they neared the hangar, another voice came through the comms. Zarek again. "Kyra," he said, his voice colder than ever. "You've led them straight to us. I hope you realize what you've done." Liam felt a cold shiver run down his spine as the realization hit him. Kyra's betrayal had been far more complicated than he'd known. She hadn't just defected from the Arcady Empire. She had once been part of its very core, trusted by its leaders. Zarek's words weren't just threats. They were personal. Liam turned to her, his face a mixture of shock and confusion. "Kyra, you knew this was coming, didn't you?" She didn't answer at first, her face unreadable. Then, quietly, she spoke. "I never wanted this, but I knew the risks. Zarek won't stop until he's captured me. And now he'll use you against me." As the ship entered the hangar, they heard the unmistakable sound of enemy ships closing in. Kyra was right. Zarek had betrayed her. And now, they were both in his trap. The doors slammed shut behind them with a deafening clang, and they were plunged into darkness. Kyra and Liam exchanged a long, tense look. There was no turning back now. Their mission had taken a darker turn, and the stakes were higher than ever before. They weren't just fighting the Arcady Empire anymore. They were fighting against one of Kyra's greatest betrayals. And the truth was clearer than ever. To stop Zarek, they would have to fight against everything Kyra had once believed in: redemption and sacrifice. The hangar was cold and quiet, save for the distant hum of machinery and the soft echo of their footsteps. Kyra and Liam stepped cautiously, knowing that every second spent in this vulnerable position brought them closer to Zarek and his forces. The weight of betrayal hung heavily in the air, but neither of them could afford to dwell on it now. There was only one thing left to do: complete their mission. "Where to?" Liam asked, his voice steady despite the fear rising in his chest. Kyra's expression was unreadable, her gaze fixed ahead. She seemed lost in thought, as if the very idea of what was about to unfold was too much to bear. Finally, she broke the silence. "Follow me," she said, her voice low. "I know a way into the archive. It's hidden beneath this facility, but we have to move fast. Zarek will be here soon." They navigated through the labyrinth of tunnels beneath the hangar, the walls lined with familiar Arcady technology. Blinking consoles, metallic doors, and narrow passageways that only Kyra seemed to know how to navigate. Her every movement was deliberate, as though she'd been here before, though she had never spoken of it. Liam felt the weight of her silence. He understood now that Kyra hadn't just betrayed the Arcady. She had betrayed everything she once believed in, including herself. And yet here she was, leading him into the very heart of the Empire to stop a war that would consume Earth. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the air became. A low hum vibrated through the metal floors, signaling the approaching presence of Arcady forces. Liam's heart raced as they reached a large, reinforced door. Kyra quickly punched in a series of codes, and the door hissed open. "We're almost there," she whispered. "The main archive is just beyond this door." As they stepped into the darkened chamber, a sudden voice shattered the silence. "I knew you'd come here, Kyra." Liam's blood froze as he recognized the voice immediately. Zarek. His figure emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing, his armor gleaming with the insignia of the Arcady elite. Kyra stiffened beside him, but she didn't flinch. "I've come to stop you, Zarek," she said, her voice colder than Liam had ever heard it. "You and your empire are nothing but a dying breed. You won't get away with this." Zarek's lips curled into a sinister smile. "You think I'm the one who needs to be stopped? You were always so naive, Kyra. You thought you could leave and change the world. But you were wrong. You'll never escape what you are." The room felt suffocating now. Liam's pulse quickened as Zarek's words sank in. He had never seen Kyra so vulnerable, so shaken. This was more than a fight against an enemy. It was a fight for her own redemption, a battle to escape the ghosts of her past. "You don't know anything about me," Kyra retorted, stepping forward. "I'm not the same person I was when I was with you. I've seen the truth now. And it's you who's blinded by your own twisted vision." Zarek's eyes narrowed, and for a moment there was a flicker of something, perhaps regret or disappointment, before he spoke again. "You were my best student, Kyra. I never wanted this for you. But you've chosen a dangerous path. You're making a mistake." Kyra's gaze hardened. "The only mistake I made was trusting people like you." Liam could feel the tension building, the air crackling with the weight of their words. He wanted to intervene, to do something, but Kyra's command was clear. This was her battle. Zarek stepped closer, his hand resting on a hidden weapon at his side. "I'm not going to let you walk away from this, Kyra. You've broken the law, and there are consequences for betrayal." As he spoke, a soft beep echoed through the room. Kyra glanced quickly at Liam, her eyes flashing with urgency. "Now," she hissed. Liam didn't hesitate. He darted to the control panel on the far wall, his hands moving quickly over the console. Within moments, the room was flooded with bright white light, and the walls shifted, revealing a hidden data vault. The hum that had been vibrating through the floor grew louder, signaling the archive's mainframe was now exposed. Zarek cursed under his breath. You think you can change the course of history with a few files? You're delusional. Kyra didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out a small device from her cloak and activated it. This isn't just about data, Zarek. It's about saving humanity. It's about showing the galaxy the truth. A massive door slid open, revealing the core of the archive. A massive, sleek, and glowing platform filled with rows upon rows of data crystals. The evidence they needed was here, stored deep within this vault. But Zarek wasn't backing down. He lunged for Kira, his hand reaching for her arm with lightning speed. In a fluid motion, she sidestepped and grabbed a weapon from her side, pointing it directly at him. Stay back, Zarek, she warned, her voice icy. I've come too far to let you stop me now. The silence between them stretched, thick with the weight of years of betrayal, training, and history. Liam held his breath, his pulse racing. He could feel the climax of this moment building. Zarek's voice broke the stillness, his tone dangerously calm. You don't have to do this, Kyra. Join me again. We can rebuild the Empire together. You don't have to be the enemy. Kyra's gaze flickered for a moment, the past and present battling within her. But then, without hesitation, she took a step back and pressed a button on her device. The room's mainframe powered up, and data began to flood the terminal screens. It's over, Zarek, Kyra said, her voice resolute. I'm not going back. I'm doing this for Earth. Without warning, Zarek lunged again, faster than before. But this time, Kyra wasn't quick enough to dodge. He grabbed her arm, twisting it behind her back in a brutal grip. Liam's heart leaped as he watched the struggle unfold. He couldn't let this happen. He couldn't lose her now. In a flash of instinct, Liam grabbed a nearby weapon, his hand shaking as he aimed it at Zarek. Let her go, he shouted. Zarek paused, his eyes flicking between Liam and Kara. A smirk crossed his face. You think you can stop me, human? You're as foolish as she was. Kyra's voice rang out, sharp and unwavering. Do it, Liam. You know what needs to be done. Liam didn't hesitate. With a burst of courage, he fired. The shot struck Zarek square in the chest, knocking him back with a grunt of pain. He crumpled to the ground, his hand releasing Kyra as he fell. Kira staggered, her breath ragged, but she caught herself. Her eyes met Liam's, filled with a complex mix of emotions. Relief, gratitude, and something deeper, something unspoken. You did it, Kyra said, her voice barely a whisper. Liam nodded, though his heart was still pounding in his chest. We did it. Kyra turned back to the data terminal. We have the evidence, she said, her hand steady now as she extracted the crucial files. It's time to change the galaxy. But in that moment, as the data flooded their system, Kyra knew the hardest part was still ahead. The consequences of her actions, and the sacrifice she'd made, would echo far beyond the walls of the Arcady archive. Kara glanced one last time at the motionless figure of Zarek, her former mentor, and whispered softly to herself, I risked it all for this. I only hope it was enough. The room hummed with power as the data began transmitting to Earth, the first step in the fight for humanity's future. Kyra knew the war had just begun, but this time, humanity would be ready. And so, with the evidence in hand and a renewed sense of purpose, they left the archive behind, prepared to face whatever came next. But the cost of their victory, of Kyra's betrayal, of the risks they had taken, was far from over. They had won this battle, but the war was just beginning, and Kyra was prepared to sacrifice everything, once again, if it meant protecting the future she had chosen.